What's up, fam? Welcome to another episode of God is Laughing at Us, the podcast. As always, I am Anthony Heath II, and today it is just me, myself, and I. So I just thank you all for coming through again, just continuing to listen. Thank you for your continued support, the encouragement. It means a lot. So let's just get into it. I pray that what I speak about today resonates, that it hits home for somebody. So let's go back to 2020. And when we go back to 2020, I think that even I have some stories because I can honestly tell you that 2020 was the beginning of life change. 2020 definitely had things happen that allowed me to become the person I am today. And not necessarily the easiest time, but hey, it's things that happen. And going into 2020, you know how every year churches or just people as a whole, we have like these nice little cute phrases for what our year is going to be, what the year ahead is going to look like, and how this is going to be our year and all of those types of things. And when you get to 2020, it was, like, perfect. It was like, "Oh, yeah, my vision 2020, like, I see everything. I see all the things God got for me and all of that." And it was like, if ever there was a "this is my year" type of year, 2020 was it. But the whole time let me see what I'm trying to say. The whole time, we over here talking about, like, "Oh, yeah, like, my vision 2020." If your vision was so 2020, in 2019, you would have been buying all the toilet paper, you'd have been buying all the Clorox wipes, you would have had all the stock in all the Microsoft, the Zoom, you would have been prepared for the staying at home, unless you were like me, a healthcare professional that staying at home wasn't exactly an option provided. But it was nice to live through those of you who had the ability to stay at home while I was apparently given shots at, well, not shots. I was given vaccinations at a record rate, to say the least. And and it's just like, how do we get there? How do we get there? It's like my vision's supposed to be 2020. So how am I here? And then you looking forward, and let me just slow down a little bit and just start to talk about some of the things that happened to me that year. Last week, I shared this platform with my wife. And then I think we also in that episode we shared about, that this isn't our first marriage. For both of us, this is our second marriage. So 2020 saw the end of my first marriage occur. Things happened that like that's when just everything that wasn't working, all of the parts of me that wasn't working, because I have to take ownership. But all of the parts of me that wasn't working, that's when it just came all the way out there and I had to start to really deal with myself. So again, it's like you could say hi. So now as I'm talking about the vision, I want to key in on hindsight because when we say our vision is 2020, I think that there's always this just common refrain that it's like, oh, hindsight is 2020. And just getting to that place of realizing that it's like you have all just based on my personal experience, sis, it's like I'm cool with the vision or with my vision being clear enough. Like after like you talk about 2020 and the year that 2020 was for me, like it wasn't the greatest year, but it was definitely a year that shaped me. Now I'll be real. I wish I had learned to cut my own hair before that. I would like to not have spent as much time in Target as I did. I can't even say I spent a whole lot of money at Target because I I just thought like anytime I want something, Target's open and Target's always going to be open. Like they're not closing Target. So it was cool for me to just be able to pull up and grab what I need. Like every basic need that I couldn't get from an actual grocery store was just at Target. Like I for a minute had like Target buddies. Like I had people that I saw at Target like, yo, that's my people. And all through just the weirdness and the craziness of the world that occurred through a global shutdown. While there was just so much personal turmoil in my personal life, but in the midst of all of that, me discovering joy and really recommitting to God. So it's like I can try to sit here with all of the thoughts about hindsight and get really caught up on the hindsight and just be like, man, I would have did this different if I knew this was about to happen. I would have invested in this. And you can go beyond that. I think that I could go even further than just 2020. I could go back to college that, man, if I just did this summer program, then maybe I would have just not dealt with a lot of the things that I dealt with, and I would have followed through on my desire to go to med school instead of going to pharmacy school or going even further back. Like, man, if I didn't have like just this complete distaste for pursuing ministry, then maybe I would have majored in something else and not have gone this route altogether. So there's so many things that we can think about. There's so many ways that we can try to justify and use these different versions of hindsight. But I'm gonna just say this, and I'm gonna say it now, but we're gonna go deeper into it. But it's you gotta be really careful when you talk about hindsight because you can inadvertently create an idol of what you coulda did. Like your coulda, woulda, shouldas could have been your idol because your coulda, woulda, shouldas can inadvertently create a thought process that you are now creating a life that you don't need God as much to strive in. So just let that marinate as we go a little bit further. Ooh, what word was that? Let's marinate on that as we move forward. Forward. That's the word. So let's talk about Lot's wife. I think Lot's wife is the poster child of giving in to hindsight and looking back. Like like you looking back and almost to the point that you're not just glamorizing what's behind you, but you're also sitting there and you're looking at what's behind you like, man, I could have salvaged that. I could have saved that. That I could have did something a little bit different. That that you gotta just go a little bit deeper. That in Genesis 19, that sorry, in Genesis 19, that's where you see God telling Lot's family, leave and go forward, don't look back. And that's it. That was the rule. That was the instruction. Get your stuff, get your family, leave. Don't look back. But she did. And maybe it was a sense of longing for what was there. It was maybe some type of hope that, man, I could have did something about that, or I could see myself in that same situation. I would have to be really focused. Cause I'm like, bruh, I left my favorite pair of J's back there, and I would just have been feeling stuck. However, there's just this thing in me that if you tell me to run, and don't look behind you. I'll worry about what's behind me or what I left and what I don't have when I get to my destination, but that's just me. But just to kind of go forward, just thinking about hindsight, one of the most dangerous things about it is that you can end up frozen in a space that you've been delivered from. So you don't want to end up in that situation that you're looking at something that you have clearly been delivered from and trying to figure out how you can fix the thing that God has saved you from, that He has made a way out of. That you can't be blaring, like you can't be blaring that Travis Green talking about you made a way, but you still looking back at it like you made a, and I still want to go back to the thing that I just got out of. Like, so if you've been saved from it and you've been delivered from it, just go. But let's be real. I know that God laughs at us because no matter how much we believe that we want to be rid of those situations, how much we want to be separated from those situations, how much we want to be away from it, there's still this thing in us that just thinks that I know so much now and I could have did something different. But then that's just where it gets wild. Like I alluded to earlier, is if I had just known then what I know now, I could have avoided this pain, this heartache. I could have avoided this loss. But you believing that you could have avoided that based off your own present understanding, off your own knowledge, like you may think that's wisdom, but that's low key idolatry. That's or maybe high key idolatry. I don't know. But it's you putting yourself in a situation where you are making your thoughts, your understanding, your beliefs, your version of wisdom greater than a wisdom and a knowledge and a faith based in the fear of the Lord. It's just like God delivered me from this, or God has clearly shown me that I don't need any of that back there, but I could have fixed this. I could have saved that, but it's gone. And whole time God is doing some brand new, magical, miraculous things for you. Like he is moving mountains because of the faith that you are exhibiting in this present moment. And you are just looking at the other thing like, but I want it. Like one of my homegirls, there's this thing that I've seen that we see on social media, and she refers to it quite often, but it's like this image where there's Jesus in front of this little girl, and she's tripping about the little teddy bear, and Jesus has like this big old bear behind his back. So our hindsight got us focused on the little bear and it takes our eyes off the bigger thing, the better thing that God has for us. Like there's a better thing that we are ignoring. And but ugh, how does hindsight become an idol? Let's go deeper. It's you you fail at Proverbs 3:5 and 6. Like, you don't trust in the Lord with all your heart, and you don't like, you are not trusting in the Lord with all your heart, and you're leaning completely on your own understanding. Like, you're acknowledging Him enough that, Lord, you gave me this wisdom so I can solve my problems by myself. Like, no, he gave me wisdom so I know to go back to him for more. That I am only complete and whole and sufficient when I am going back to him so that I can be recharged, so I can be refueled, so I can be renewed. Because you could just be sitting there replaying conversations. You can be sitting there like, man, I shouldn't have sent that text message. And it's just, again, it's like hindsight will mess around and trick you into trying to build a life that's so safe, that's so strategic, that you've been prayed up and you done had all your prayers answered, that you done made all the money that you gonna make, that you done stacked up, that you done saved up, that you done bought all the good stocks, that you've been so prepared for everything that you will mess around and let hindsight create a life for you that doesn't require God. Because And because you forget that those things that didn't work out in the past, God's been working them out for you and for your future. So going backwards, it seems cool. And let's talk to some married people for a second, or or people on the cusp of marriage, people in committed relationships. I think that there's a tendency to romanticize your singlehood. That I know in some cases there's society doesn't do the best job of making singlehood something that we should appreciate, something that we should enjoy and everything. That I get that. I'm in agreement with that even. However, there's just that added balance and that added realization that even though society doesn't do a great job in how we manage and how we think about singlehood, when we get out of it, for some reason, being in a relationship just triggers all of the man. Being single wasn't that bad. I can come and go as I please. I ain't have to worry about this. I ain't have to worry about that. I can, like, if I ain't feel like putting away my laundry, I ain't have to put away my laundry. Or I ain't have to worry about cleaning up after nobody else. Whatever your thoughts are, you over there looking at something that no longer has a purpose in your life because you over here questioning if you got everything out of it that you needed to the detriment of where you are now. So, and that's another sign of the idolatry, right? That if you're not careful, you're so caught up on what you no longer have that you begin cursing what you do have. So don't let hindsight, or don't let trying to live on hindsight get you into that situation where you are now cursing your blessings. Because if you curse your blessings with your mouth, then the blessing will lose its luster. And oh yeah, that thing will become a curse too if you let it. So watch your mouth. So how do we get past hindsight? How do we move forward? Well, I'm glad you asked. So there's two keys. First one is foresight. Foresight is really just leaning on faith. You got to trust in God when you don't know what's coming. You got to, and be real with yourself, because I'm going to be real. I've come to accept that I don't know what's coming most of the time, that I've given up on trying to live a perfectly curated and under control life, or a life that I have the utmost control over. Do I plan for things? Absolutely. Do I talk to my wife about things and how we're going to do things going forward? Absolutely. But when it comes down to it, I trust in God. I mean, it's like I wouldn't consider myself to be a prophet or anything. Like God didn't establish me in that way. I mean, I believe that we all have the ability to speak prophetically because we all know what the word says, so we can speak the word. However, God did give me the ability to not be 100% sure, but still be confident enough in him that even when I don't like, even when I'm maybe like 75%, if I'm being generous in terms of my confidence in moving forward, I'm 100% confident in God. And even when I whine, even when I complain, even when I get upset, I keep going. And I keep going knowing that God has given me the next step, that He continues to give me the information, that God isn't asking me to just step out and launch out into nothing, that everything has a purpose. So when I leave the old thing behind, I'm better. I'll say I'm better at not looking behind and trying to salvage something that I know I have no place in. As uncomfortable as it can be, as much as I may even want what I used to have, when I know it's time for me to move on, I move on. And I do so happily because the thing that God has instilled in me over these last couple years, and even just going back to 2020, just all of the things that I dealt with that year, I just really became big on not even worried about my own time, but I'm not wasting nobody else's time. Like I have no interest in wasting anybody else's time. So I'm like, so as soon as I get that clear, resounding, like, nah, dog. Like as soon as God's like, nah, that ain't it. I'm like, well, guess this isn't it. I want to have a respectful conversation with whomever or whatever I need to, or do whatever I need to do to come to terms. But I'm going to let my faith in God be the thing that leads me forward. And where the foresight doesn't take me, insight will also get me. So instead of looking at my past in hindsight as to what I could have done to salvage the past, I use insight or I use wisdom to learn from my mistakes, to learn from my past without romanticizing or replaying my past as something that I need to go and fix. Like, no, I use my past as information for two things. Because for one, it tells me that God has been looking out for me for as long as I can remember. So that's the first thing that I look to my past for, to know that God has been present and He is faithful. Two, when I look to my past as a roadmap to know how to move forward. So I know, okay, I'm not gonna do that again. Okay. Like I'm gonna leave that there. Like, okay, that didn't work. But I'm not gonna insert present me into the past situation and try to make it work out that way. And we being real, I probably would have squandered that back then. So we gonna leave it where it's at. We gonna let it chill. We gonna let it sizzle. We gonna let it bubble where it's at. And if that thing gets burned in the all consuming holy fire, I guess I won't miss it. And me being real, I'm like, I'm cool, or I'm gonna have to be cool. I'm gonna get there. If I'm not there right now, I'm gonna get there because we use our foresight, which, to establish our faith. We read the prophetic words. We read our scripture. We read all of these things so that we know things, so that we can understand what's working for us and what's working and what hasn't worked for us. But the beautiful thing is that Romans 8:28, all things work together for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. If you look at your past, if you look at the things that you dealt with, if you look at the things that you have gone through, just know that it may not have worked out then, but it is working out for you now. You may not see it, you may not have seen the harvest of it, but look, you plant a tree, that tree takes some time, seed time, harvest. So you got to let it. You just gotta trust that it is coming, that the harvest is coming, that it is going to happen, and that it will be a much more amazing thing than you can ever have imagined. And let me pull this up because this comes to mind, and I want to make sure that I don't butcher this one. But James 1:5, I think it's James 1:5. Um, yes, James 1:5. Let me get I don't know what version that was, but James 1:5. If any of you lacks wisdom, or read it as, if any of you lacks insight, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him. But let's go to 6. But let him ask in faith with no doubting, for he who doubts is like a wave of sea driven and tossed by the wind. So it's just so James 1:5 through 6 tells you to do two things. If any of you lacks insight, ask God, but let you ask with foresight. So let you ask with faith and not doubting. Let you ask with belief and trust. And something that you may not see it now, but you know that he has established and he has made a way for it. Because let's be real, it's like the more that I sit with or think about any type of hindsight, the more that like you could say that hindsight is 2020, but and I say this as a glasses wearer, or I got contacts in right now, but y'all know what I'm talking about. But if I'm real, hindsight ain't 2020, and if it is, I feel like I sat on the glasses. I feel like the glasses been stepped on. They useful if I could get it to stay on my face, and that's a big if. Because again, it's like, what good is vision that doesn't change anything? What good is it to be like Lot's wife and look back, but now you get turned into a pillar of salt, and now you just salty that you're looking back on a thing that very well could have destroyed you. And instead of moving forward, knowing that you've been delivered from something, you're looking backwards and you just salty. So don't look back, because I can think of all the flavors, like all the flavors there are to be. The word says that we are to be the salt of the world, but the word does not say we are to be salty. So be the salt of the world, but don't be salty, bruh. It's not a good look. Salty don't look good on anybody. Cause cause if we're being real, if we want to rely on hindsight, we'll all be millionaires. We'll all be in our nice cars. We'll all have like buku stock and everything. We'll all have all of these skills and just be living our dream life. Or, or we would be shockingly less happy with the life we manufactured for ourselves without God. So let me wrap this up. Hindsight isn't inherently evil, but hindsight is not God. It certainly ain't Jesus. It cannot save you. Hindsight has no redemptive properties. It cannot redeem you. All it can do is tell you what you should have done. But let's question this. Or let's ask ourselves a question. Is what you should have done what God would have told you to do? Like what you think you should have done, is that what God would have told you to do in that season? Is that what God would have told you to do at that point in time? Is that what you would have leaned into and went ahead and do at that point in time? Because I already know, as for me personally, every time I replay the hindsight machine, every conclusion I've ever reached, I realized that I was more than likely pursuing something that would have made me comfortable, but would have taken me further away from purpose. So do I want to be comfortable, or do I want to be pursue fully pursuing God's purpose? And that sounds like a trick question, because I'm like, most of us, and me included, I'm like, yes, I want an element of comfort. I want to live a comfortable life. However, I don't want to live a comfortable life that comes at the detriment of living and pursuing purpose, point blank. Because you got to remember again, Romans 8:28. God works those things together. He's working all things together. So God, He will actually take what you did do, even the bad decisions, even things that you shouldn't have did, even the things that were just honestly a bad idea at the time. Like He will take all of those things and He's going to redeem all of those things. And not only is He going to redeem all of the things from your past, but for so many of us, He can redeem the time that you wasted, that you can enter into a situation. And this is one of the beautiful things, for example, with my marriage now, that even though I've been married to my wife for 2.5 years now, it's almost as if, because I chose to honor God from the beginning. I didn't Now I'm not gonna sit here in front like I did that perfectly, but even still, it's like there was no part of my marriage that God was not a part of from day one. So it's like He's redeeming the time, that there's things that we are still working through as husband and wife because it's been 2.5 years. However, there are things, there are commonalities that it feels as if we've been together for 10 plus years. So, in so many ways, if I relied on hindsight, then I would only have a partial, fuzzy, darker picture than anything that I could get through faith, foresight, through relying on the prophetic word of God, through relying on the things that have been spoken to me and pulling it off the shelf for the appointed time, understanding that everything that's been spoke to me in the past may not have been for that very moment. So it's just knowing that God will bring things back to your remembrance. And that's the beautiful thing, that even when you are in that place where you feel like, man, I got to look back, it's like, look back, but make sure that you're looking back for the things that are edifying. Make sure that you're meditating and allowing God to speak to you. Hey, remember when I told you this? Whatever, wherever you have that written down, whether it's in your notes, whether it's locked away in your mind. I mean, I'm guilty of locking things away in my brain. Is I wouldn't recommend this method. It's because you end up forgetting a lot or not having a good source reference, but I digress. But just wherever you have these things written, wherever you have these things stored, the things that God brings back to your remembrance, it's amazing. And then you have the opportunity to really just rely on those things when the time comes. So don't idolize hindsight. Don't be looking back thinking that you're going to do something different, thinking that changing your past is going to redeem you from things that Jesus hasn't already redeemed you from. Don't try to build a life that's so perfect that you don't need God. Like, don't look back and think that that I could have changed my life better than God is doing for me right now. That his redemptive power, that walking forward with him is not doing and making the difference that you need. Because and you want to be real, it's like every time we look back at our past and we talk as if or we think ourselves into convincing ourselves that we could have been a better savior of our past self than Jesus is, God laughs at us. And he very quickly lets us know, hey, quit, don't play with me though. So I'm gonna close there. I think that's a good place to close. So this has been another episode of God is Laughing at Us, the podcast. Again, I am Anthony Heath II, riding solo once again. I pray that this conversation, if you want to call it that, has been a blessing and can't wait to sit here and chop it up with with the people again. So thank you. Good night, good afternoon, good morning, whatever time you happen to be listening to this. And peace out.